around the world. This morning, here at the Spanish Chamber of Commerce in the UK, we are delighted to be joined by Nieves Rodriguez. Nieves is an entrepreneur, an author, a public speaker, and she is also the founder and executive certified coach at Fast Track to a Focus Coaching Academy. I'm going to let her explain a bit more about the academy itself to you shortly. Fast Track to a Focus are also members of the chamber. This is going to be an interactive session, so please, if you have any questions while Nieves is speaking, please feel free just to write it in. You'll see at the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A facility for asking questions, and as Nieves is speaking, she'll answer your questions. But also at the end of the talk, there'll be further time for any questions that you have to be answered. So please, if you have anything you want to ask, just go ahead. Okay, without further ado, then I'm going to hand it over to Nieves.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here today with you in sunny London, if you're joining from London, but I'm sorry if you're joining from other parts of the world, especially from Spain. I heard it's a little bit sunny or a little bit rainy, depending on where you are. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. And today we are going to talk about the different factors that affect our current environment, as Anna said, how to achieve, especially nowadays, results in unpredictable times like the ones we are going through with the COVID-19 and unpredictable times that are affecting our not only our professional lives but also our personal lives. That's something that's totally unprecedented because we haven't gone through something similar, during our lives, and professionally speaking, under a completely total different environment, because we are also working from home. So it's not just a crisis, but we have been forced to work from home, and this is also affecting our personal lives. But also with the positive factor that we are living in the digital area, and we have the technology like today that can help us actually to balance out all what we are going through. So since we planned this workshop, actually things have changed even further, and on top of the unpredictable times that we are completely working from home in all the countries, which adds a different tweak to it, on top of the unpredictable times and the challenges we are all going through. Funny enough, the new generations and globalization are screaming for more, remote jobs, and while many consider this topic a trend, their research actually shows that the work that actually people make from home actually is quite challenging and is not as good or as positive as we all thought. So I think we need to be very careful with what you dream, because actually now everyone is working from home. So a lot of people dream on at one point during the professional life to work from home. We have to be very careful of what we dream of. But the reality as well is, on top of the unpredictable times, working from home obviously adds a challenging to our day-to-day job, and most of the remote workers actually struggle with staying motivated. Only 8% of the people that actually work from home actually stay motivated. Collaborating and communication, only 17% of them, they believe that they have a good communication or the good collaboration with the leaders, with the colleagues. They feel loneliness, 19%, and they completely feel unplugged from their work, which I think is very interesting, and I wanted to share with you because, again, on top of the crisis, on top of the times we're going through, we are working from home. So again, this has added a lot of complexity to whether you're a big company, whether you're a global company, a small, medium, or entrepreneur. Definitely, this is going to be something you need to take into account. And in terms of great uncertainty, leaders are faced with one of the two choices. They kind of weaken freeze to the point of inaction, or allowing uncertainty to damage our culture, our performance, our cash flow, our results, or actually we can transform the fear into engagement, execute with excellence, use these uncertainty times to actually increase trust and help everyone in the organization to prepare to do more with less. And this is actually what I want to do with you today. Obviously, I don't want you to freeze, but instead I want to, turn this around and convert it into engagement. So the agenda for today is we are going to talk first of all how to transform fear into engagement. We are going to be talking about increasing trust to increase speed and engagement. We are going to be talking about achieving more with less, which is fact. Either we like it or not, is a fact that we are going to have to live with. And also, but no less important, we are going to be talking about executing your most important priorities, because nowadays, it's even more important that absolutely all of us, all the leaders in organization and your employees, we give to 100%, because things are going to change dramatically. So this is what we're going to be talking today. More than 70% of change initiative fails. I think that's a very important fact as well. And they fail because of failure to engage employees. And that's why I wanted to show you the numbers in the previous slide, because unless we are capable of actually engaging our employees, we are going to fail. No matter how hard we try, we are going to fail. And that's why it's very important to focus on this fact, because again, we need to overcome this or leave this behind even stronger at a 200%. Just to make sure our businesses survive to what is happening. And we need to start handling the fear and converting it into engagement. That's definitely a starting point if you really want to success. And we need to validate. Fear is a human emotion, and it is something we are trained to suppress or to ignore. But when leaders learn to accept it and manage fear and anxiety, and they and their team, their members, they actually continue to function in the high levels required to reach their goals. So it's very critical to allow and validate those feelings and those emotions, not only in your team, but in yourselves as well. And in doing so, you will foster greater empathy, connection, and a sense of control. We need to validate we are human beings, leaders as human beings. And, it's not a weakness to show that we have those emotions, that we have that fear. Actually, I think that actually helps to connect with our teams. And I will talk later about how to work on that circle of concern and circle of influence, because that's a way to convert the fear and those emotions, and how to control, by working on your circle of concern and your circle of influence. So you can start experience the clarity and the peace of mind that comes from focusing on what you can actually influence. But very important to validate those feelings, not only again in your team, but in yourself. While your head is full of urgencies, and now obviously we are all focusing on retaining the customers, increasing cash flow, saving the business, you won't get the effort and the energy required to address those urgencies if those emotions, either again yours or from your team, are hijacked. So it's very important to have that empathy, because practicing empathy will actually help your members and yourself to move to performance. And leader that demonstrates that compassion toward employees, they're going to ones that they're going to be fostering individual and collective resilience. And in challenging times like we are doing to need now more than ever, again, we need to be resilient, we need to be agile, and we need to become stronger. And empathetic listening means listening with intent to actually to understand. You don't need to be fake. We don't need to be fake, but actually that means Active listening is really understanding the fears and of others and the emotion of others and actually validate them. That is nothing wrong. And actually, you need to encourage your people to talk to you and listen to how they feel until they actually feel understood. Because if they don't feel understood, they are not going to, engage. They're not going to engage with you. They are not going to trust you. And we will talk about trust later. And you're not going to get the best out of them on a professional level and on the personal level as well. And when emotion de-escalate, when you actually tackle them, you can actually respond, and you can actually, you can give advice, and then that creates that mutual respect and trust. And then from that point moving forward, you can actually you can get to work, you can actually take action, you can actually start working on the resumption plan. But you can not start doing that if you haven't tackled for the emotions and the fears of you, of your team. So very important thing as well is number two is foster connection, especially now that again we're working from home. You need to regroup each morning, whether it's in Zoom like we're doing today, Skype. I mean, we have, webinar, go to webinar. There are, that's the good thing about technology nowadays of what we are going through today. So connect each morning with your team to have meetings in order to respond to questions, or you can just listen to them, listen to, again, the fears and their emotion, or provide a team with new information, even if for you maybe it's not very important, but just having that morning conversation with you that actually is going to create trust. Encourage as well, put them into action, encourage subgroups to work on challenges together while supporting each other. They are not going to feel alone, and this is going to be reducing their fear again. And this is going to increase their confidence and reduce fear, making them more engaged, and they're going to be working more efficiently. And also consider, very important, when you foster connection, you need to consider how much to share to create a connection with your team. What is private and what is public. Be aware of over sharing your own fears, but you may choose as well to share some of the challenges you're going through and your reactions and your emotion in order to share, to show that we are all in the same boat. We are in this together, and as people, and they can relate to you, and as their leaders. Sometimes we believe that leaders they are not human beings, and leaders, they are completely human beings as the rest of the employees in the organization. So be open and don't be shy of actually sharing your concerns. I mean, don't overuse it, but you're a human being, so there's nothing about showing those emotions, because you're going to create that bond with the employees. The number three is focusing on your circle of influence, as I was mentioning before. Again, the most important is the number one and number two, but then once you have listened and fostered the connection, it is important as a leader to help your team and yourself to work on your area of concern and area of influence. What you need to do is to write down, I will explain this, the circle of influence, but you need to write down everything in your mind that is actually concerning you, about your cash flow, about your sales, how long I'm going to be an employee. And you can use this on the personal level and on a professional level, and write them all down, personal and professional, and everything else that you are concerned about. This is your circle of concern. If you see that circle, you have the circle of concern outside and the circle of influence inside. So what you want to do actually is to grow that circle of influence that is inside, so your circle of concern gets smaller and smaller. And again, you can do this, with your family. You can do this with your kids. You can do it at work. And then, so when you wrote down your area of concern, the things that actually concern you, highlight only the ones that you can actually influence, focusing on your personal strength. This is your circle of influence, consisting of the challenges you have the power to influence. And when we focus on that circle of concerns, the problem is that we can't influence, but we still care about. We have less time and energy to spend on the things that we can influence if we only focus on that circle of concern. We waste a lot of energies, and we are not growing. I mean, we are making that circle of concern bigger and our circle of influence is smaller. And actually, what you want to do is the other way around. You want to focus on your strengths, your family strengths, your personal strengths, your team strengths, and you can actually do this exercise with each of your employees, and actually think about what can I do or how can I use my strengths to actually have an influence in this area and make this circle of influence and make my circle of concern smaller by taking actions on the thing they are within your area of control. And this is going to, again, it's going to keep you busy, it's going to keep your employees busy, and it's going to increase the confidence level and reduce that fear. And actually, you're going to have more engagement as well. This is very important, and again, you can use it on your personal life as well. So and then once you tackle the fear, now it's important to really work on the trust, to increase the trust, to increase the speed and engagement again, because nowadays it's something we are going to need actually to become stronger and as a human beings and as professionals as well. And this resumption is devastating for everyone. That's a fact, and we need to validate it. But it's interesting to me that when something like that happens, you see a lot of the leaders invest and focus, which is is understandable, but they focus on all sorts of things. They think they are vital for them for the business, like the cash flow, keeping the business open, which obviously is very important, the margin of benefits, what the competitors are doing, etc., etc. But you know what? If I need to tell you something or share something with you, is we need to focus on anything. It has to be building the trust, because unless you tackle the trust as well and you build that trust, again, you're not going to be able to bring your sales back. You're not going to be able to maintain your cash flow. In different circumstances, yes, but in challenging circumstances and having your employees working from home, definitely trust, it is the key. And trust is an accelerator. It's time of change, crisis, and uncertainty. The greatest asset that insecurity any leader has in there is their credibility. The greatest currency they have is the trust that people have in them, because trust is an accelerator and trust is a multiplier. And so I want to show you here what is called the trust tax. When there is low trust in any team, in any culture, in any organization, society, or relationship, speed goes down, and the cost they go up, because it is a tax. Think about any leader that you don't trust. I'm sure all of us, we can think about one of the leaders we didn't trust. They can communicate whatever they want to communicate, but you will discount what they say, or you simply won't believe it, full stop, and much less act on it. Low trust organizations have a lot of bureaucracy and excessive controls. And I'm sure any of us will work on those type of organizations. You can actually feel it. You can actually see it in the culture. They go very slow. They don't speed to market. So the cost is very, very high. But the opposite is also true. When trust is high, speed goes up and the cost comes down. When credible leaders share information or announce a plan, their teams get to work. Communication and collaboration are seamless. Teams feel safe, they innovate, and they take what I call the smart risk. You have to be very careful with the risk, especially nowadays, but the smart risk is better than not taking action. High trust earns it's a dividend and it's a performance multiplier. So again, very important to build that trust. That is a little bit time consuming, but definitely is going to pay that dividend. So very important to work on the trust. And I'm going to show you 4 key behaviors that build high trust fast. That again, it doesn't cost anything and is going to really pay off. So first of all is confront reality. Confronting reality means discussing the undiscussable and calling out the elephant in the room. Like we said, no, the opposite of confronting reality is to ignore and as act as if nothing is happening. No, and that's the worst thing you can do. No, because we need the bad news, and unfortunately, nowadays, again, whether you're a big company and a small company, or entrepreneur, or even at home, we have bad news. But you know, you need to call out the elephant in the room. You need to talk about. We have to confront and work through it together, and not around it. Doing so inspire trust again and confidence, because people they are going to believe in you. They know that you are being transparent. No, and this is the second point. They create transparency. So create transparency is enables the people to see it, you know, very clearly. You don't have a hidden agenda. It gives them a sense of comfort and confidence of where you're saying it is true. They know nothing is hidden. And the best way to handle this is to be upfront about the information we have, and I'm sure we all have in, you know, good, well, maybe more than good, negative or neutral things to communicate with our teams. And when we know things, we share what we know. That's very important. And we don't know things, we say that we don't know. And when we are doing is to learn those things, and we are going to be trying to respond. So we have to be very honest. If we don't have the answer, we will go back to them. And if we have information, and I'm sure it happens to all of you as well, and you can share, just say so. I mean, say that you have information you cannot share at this point. Why? Again, that is going to transmit trust, and they're gonna believe in what you're saying, and this is what you actually want to transmit to your employees during this time of uncertainty. Then the third is talk straight. Again, get a reputation for being clear and upfront about the bad news and about the good news. But again, nowadays it's more about the bad news, but I'm sure you can also look about, you know, good things that they are happening or slowing happening, or otherwise make an effort to find, you know, positive things about all what's happening. People might not be always like what you're telling them or what they're here, but they learn, they can trust what they are hearing from you. And again, that is very important. I always say that the leader is not someone that has to be popular, and it has to be someone that actually make the right decision, and that doesn't mean always to be very popular. This is, you know, a little bit of the same. And the fourth, very important, is extend the trust. When we lead in a way that shows trust, this will motivate them and make them feel important, which will then increase their job satisfaction and therefore their productivity. One of the main reasons employees in many organizations don't trust their managers is simply because the managers don't trust their employees. It's as simple as that. And in fact, I would say that being trusted is the most inspiring form of human motivation in organization. We will always look for bonus, which are, you know, amazing, and other kind of, you know, benefit of kind, but actually trust, I can tell you, is one of the best human motivation you can build in your organization, especially now that, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if you're telling me that we are going through cost reductions like everyone in any part of the world. So this is very important. And anyway, as a human being, that's what you need to build. Then something that is happening nowadays as well is we have to achieve more with less, or actually doing things differently. More than ever, you need your people to be both effective and efficient. As most of your people have gone home to work Are you actually confident that they have the tools necessary to focus in their time and the energy on their tasks and projects, and that will have actually the biggest impact in, the steps that you need to be taking on nowadays. And so reflect actually on what you have learned. This is very important. So this is the time where things are changing, markets are changing, the competitors are changing, and change is the only thing actually that is going to stay. And so we really need to actually analyze at this point in time what is actually what you've learned on your business, what has worked and what hasn't worked. I do a lot of this exercise with clients, which is a better if exercise. I call it very simple but very powerful. That is, just analyze area by area of your business. What has worked in the past and you're going to continue doing. What didn't work, and just stop doing it, or just tweak it or change it. And what you have never done before, especially now because things are changing, and actually looking at what the market is doing, what the competitors are doing, start doing that. So you really need to reflect before moving forward, before working on your resumption plan. That I hope everyone's working on the resumption plan. Really do an analysis. Stop. I always say that you need to stop to move forward. So really stop, analyze. That's the positive things of what is happening is maybe we have a little bit more time with our employees, with our leaders, to actually stop and really think about what is working, what is not, review our business, and come up again stronger from this. So talking about the resumption plan, definitely that is something when you tackle the emotions, while you tackle the fear, once you build that trust with your employees and review what you have done in the past. It is time to really work on your resumption plan. Once you, so basically, is to start thinking about bringing back business, because this is going to be over. But this is going to be that's a fact. This is going to be over, and this is going to be completely different. There are two facts. So you really need now to really and engage your employees to be out there, to understand what is happening in the market trends, talk to your customers, and very important, do not assume. Especially the salespeople, they do, or we do, a very bad job really making assumptions. We, tell our pitch, but actually we don't listen to our clients, and this is the time that you really need to be as close as possible to your clients and to your employees. Learn from them how they see the future, what are they going to value under these new circumstances. The business have changed, not only yours, but your customers. So what are they going to value? Because that's going to really help you to build on your resumption plan. And then what do you need to take into account when building this resumption plan to ensure you meet their needs? Do your resumption plan as simple as possible, but also as specific as possible. Less is more. Again, you want to focus, you really want to narrow focus on what you want to build during this time of uncertainty. Simple, specific, what area you're going to be working on, who's responsible for that, the goal, the timeline, and we'll talk about that now as well, because that's going to actually help your team to increase the area of control, or the area of influence that we were talking before. But you need to start taking actions with smaller steps. Sometimes you don't have the information, and that's fine. You don't need to take a big step. It's not a big deal. Start by taking small actions, smaller steps. And this has a dual benefit of creating some level of clarity for your team, and working on the area of control, I was saying, and reducing their area of concern and their fears. Seek your direct reports input in determining the short terms, the objectives, defining how you will measure success, and also assigning roles for moving forward for each of them. And with that, when you start working on the resumption plan, then you need to really make sure that you focus on your most important priorities. Again, even nowadays more, because and the problem is that especially nowadays when we work on the resumption plan, that's why I was saying that has to be very specific and simple. Too many companies, especially the frontline employees, receive dozens of high priority messages. And these conflict messages make it very difficult for them to prioritize and to focus. And again, you want to have a narrow focus on the few most important priorities that will make the biggest difference in the organization. So narrow focus, simple and very effective, narrow focus and really focusing on those things that are really nowadays that are going to make a difference, and by engaging your employees. And if you're leading people right now, you're probably trying to get them to do something different, and that's fine. Things are going to change, but whether you lead in a small work team or in a whole company, in a big corporation, not significant. I can tell you that not significant results is achievable unless people change their behavior. And that's why it's very important what I was showing before, that 70% of the initiative of the changes actually fail because they don't have the engagement from the employees, because the employees didn't change their behavior. Yet, to be successful, you will need more than just their compliance. You will also need their commitment. And it's not easy. So I'm going to share with you 4 principles, and with that, we will be done. The first principle is focus on the important things. Start by selecting 1 or 2 important goals instead of trying to work on dozens goals all at once. I'm suggesting you, again, a narrow focus to work on what you want to improve. While any important goal is worth achieving, an important goal must be achieved. And if you focus on many goals at once, you will end up doing a mediocre job in many goals when you could actually do a great job in 1 or 2 important goals. I think that is the key. And to develop an important goal, identify where you are now, where you want to be, and by when. Again, very simple. I'm sure this is not new to you, but say differently, you need to define a starting time, a finish line, and a deadline. Very, very simple, but you will be surprised how many organizations, how many leaders, how many employees, they still not work like that, and they're trying to achieve many things, and at the end we do a mediocre job in many things. And I wanted to show you this because I think that gives a very good indication of the type of priorities leaders have, senior leaders in the organization, and the type of priorities other employees have. So you come to the top, you see that the leaders, senior leaders, they have 10 priorities, but when you go down to the organization, the frontline employees, they could have up to 40 plus priorities. So that is very important. I think when you go to the leadership, they get more managerial leadership skills type of training. They are told how to prioritize. Obviously, the experience helps as well. But you go down to the frontline employees, they have more priorities, but instead they don't receive training. They don't receive any support regarding soft skills. So it's very important. Sometimes we demand a lot from the frontline employees, but actually they want the ones with more priorities and with less resources, the less training. So very important that you keep that in mind. So you keep goals simple and make sure they are executables, no? They are able to execute in a very simple way. And also this is time, there are plenty of free resources to help your employees to learn how to manage priorities. The number 1 is act on the lead measures. Your success will be based on 2 kinds of measures, and no matter what you're trying to achieve, the lag and the lead measures. I don't know if you've heard about that in the past, but let me explain what the lag measure tells you is if you achieve the goal, and the lead measure tells you if you're likely to achieve the goal. So lag measure tracks the success in your important goals, and you know, the performance, the sales, you know, the different key performance indicators. But the lag measures, you know, they measure the performance that drop, and they're already passed. You cannot do anything to fix them. They already started. In the contrast, the lead measures are proactive actions that you can take. They track the critical activities that will drive the lag measures, and they predict if you are going to achieve your goals or not. So what I'm saying is act on the lead measure and train your team and your leaders to focus on the lead measure, the most important goals, and in the lead measures, because this is the ones that you can actually influence, and is under your area of control, and this will increase the motivation, and it will increase the efforts of the team that actually the team puts into it, because they will know that in order to achieve the goals, they can actually influence and they can participate. What happened, and you cannot do anything with it. Just learn from it. As I was saying before, you know, do an even better if, and necessities about learning about the past, but you better focus on the lag measures. Look at them, look at what worked and what didn't work, move on, and really put all your focus on the lead measures and help your team to do so as well. And then when you have your resumption plan and when you build those lead measures, you really want to make sure you keep a scorecard. And you know, this is funny because people play differently in different organizations, and depending how you play, you know. But they play at work as well differently when they're keeping a score. And if you doubt this, watch a group of teenagers playing basketball, for example. As long as no one is keeping a score, it is not really a game. They talk and they laugh and they show off for each together. But when someone starts keeping a score, the things change dramatically. They become intense. The game really become intense. They huddle, they play, they execute with energy. And so this is the discipline 3 of keeping a scoreboard. It's the discipline of the engagement. People perform best when they are emotionally engaged, and at the highest level of engagement comes when they know the score, when they know how they're doing. So this is very important. If players know the score and if they can influence the lead measure, how the action, the resumption plan, the goals actually, and if the lead measure move the lag measure, that you have a winnable game, you have a winnable team. So the previous things that I was talking about previously are nothing more than a formula for creating a winnable game. Actually, you really make sure that you keep a scorecard. So you engage the employees, you build that resumption, simple and to the point, learn from the past, and when you start implementing, make sure you have very clear responsibilities and you keep a scorecard. And then the number 4 is cadence of accountability. This basically the cadence of accountability is rhythm that you need to implement, especially now that you have your key workers, or one of the key workers, your workers working from home and yourself. You need to keep a regular and frequent team meetings. Not being in the office doesn't mean you cannot have that contact, but you need to make sure that you focus on the widely important goals. These meetings happen in week, and you can do sometimes daily as well, and ideally they last no more than 20 minutes, and in that brief time, team members hold each other accountable. That's the beauty of having a scoreboard for commitments made to move the score, and they determine what to do to move the score this week. So very brief on a regular basis. And nowadays we need to do it in Teams, in Zooms, Skypes, etc., etc. But it's even more important to do it nowadays to make sure there is no silence, to make sure that engagement is there, and to make sure they feel they can participate even during times of crisis or unpredictable times. And the secret of this discipline is the commitment that team members create in the meeting, one by one. In the team members, just get into the culture of asking a simple questions every week or whenever you have those meetings, and ask each of them responsible for those tasks one very simple question, which is, what are the one or the two things, most important things that you can do this week to move closer to your goal? And that's the answer, the answer they need, each of them responsible for the task, to answer to you. So they force each other to be committed, and you force them to actually be on track on their most important goals. So in the meeting, basically, you're going to do an account review, report on the last week commitment, on the progresses. Then you are going to review, examine the scoreboard, and then from successes and failures, and again tweak, and then move on to the following week to see, okay, what is the most important task each of you can focus next week actually to really get closer to our goals and really become, come stronger from this situation. And last but not least, prioritize your own self-care. That's what I really need to tell you. When you're sleep deprived, when you over caffeinated, when you under exercise, you're much less likely to be able to focus, and you are most likely to manage your emotions and make good decisions, and you're not going to be able to support your employees or your business during these uncertain situations. So you really need to put your, like on the airplane, or you need really to put your oxygen mask before helping others, because so don't underestimate your self-care during these circumstances, because the boat or the ship is not going to arrive at its destination without a captain, and the captain at the end is you or your team members or the leaders in your organization. So that is definitely very, very important, self-care, and sometimes we underestimate the importance of the self-care. So in summary, transform, very important 4 steps. First of all, transform the fear into engagement, building that communication, having that two-way communication, open line of communication on a regular basis with your team. Increase the trust, really to engage them. So you need to be transparent, you need to be open and honest with them, with what is happening, even if it's bad news. We need to hear those bad news. Silence definitely is not good in the current environment. Once you build on those 2 principles that are very important, the third would be to really build that winnable resumption plan, focusing on the important and being very simple but specific, who is going to be responsible for what, and then build that team accountability and review regularly with your team members to keep their commitments. And if you build on that, and I have no doubt that you will build a winnable game, and you will become stronger when we leave all these behind us. And thank you. I hope I helped a little bit to overcome this uncertain situation we are all going through. It's a difficult one, but definitely something that's very important is to validate. This is the first time we are all going through that. Make sure you show up as a human being, and helping each other. That's definitely the key to really survive. And I'm open for any sort of question. I've been trying to look at the the Q&A, Hannah, but maybe you can help me with that.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much, Nieves. That was really, really interesting. We do have some questions from the participants. One of them is, so in summary of what you've said, this is what an anonymous attendee has asked, what would you say are the most challenging aspects nowadays in keeping employees engaged?
I think nowadays, again, in the current circumstances, definitely is that the uncertainty combined with working from home, because definitely that's a really difficult situation that just few businesses went through in the past, because some businesses or some industries, they have a lot of employees, remote employees working from home. But definitely this is the combination. So I think the most challenging at this time is, I would say, is the communication. I think nowadays is key. Is the most challenging. It is the most easy or the easier, sorry, to fix. And but for some reason, that's one that most of the people find more challenging. But again, nowadays, thanks to the technology, and this is a very good example. If don't be concerned of over communicate. That would be my suggestion. That is one of the challenges, but my suggestion would be, it's better just to communicate. It's just better to do Zoom, Skype, a Teams, a call with your team. And if you don't have anything to communicate, just listen to their concerns. I think that's one of the more challenges and the easier to fix at the same time, Hannah.
Brilliant, thank you. Another question that we have is, how would you handle the communication about reduction in workforce, or obviously very topical at the moment, either that or employees being required to go on the furlough scheme, for example?
Yeah, being very honest and transparent. Again, I think you need to build on the trust. I mean, the fear is there, as we were saying, and the emotions are there. But definitely something you don't want to lose is the trust. That's why I was showing you the numbers. That's one of the things you really lose, very, very quickly, and it's very difficult to build again. So having a very honest conversation is not definitely, they are not easy, but you need to be very transparent. So your human side, I mean, and your emotions and your concerns, and explain the reasons behind the pros, the cons, the short-term impact, the long-term impact. Having very transparent conversation, definitely that's the key. In my over 30 years experience as a leader, if one of the things I learned when I was in a multinational company in September 11th, I think that was it. We didn't handle it very well, and I think it's one of the lessons I've learned in my leadership career. You want to make sure you're open and transparent. And again, people need to hear bad news. If you need to communicate bad news, just be open and transparent, and explain the reason why, and explain the consequences of taking those actions, or the consequences of if you don't take those actions. They will like it or not like it, but they would understand.
Brilliant, thank you. Another participant, Johanna, has asked, when focusing on priorities in the current situation, we might tend to classify between key workers and workers whose role is not determined in the current situation. So how do we engage with these workers that are important in a normal situation, but in this current situation, their role might lose slightly the importance of, might slightly lose importance because of the situation?
Yeah, very, very good question. Thank you. I think it's by making sure you keep the short-term plan and the long-term plan in mind, because again, you don't want to lose track of those employees that maybe nowadays they are not as important as in the past because of what we are going through. But definitely, you need to keep your head of the long-term plan of your business and ensure you don't de-engage or demotivate those employees, because they're key. Absolutely every single employee plays an important role in your organization. If they don't, maybe you need to ask yourself why you have them. But either short term or long term, they're important for the company, and maybe even more important than the key workers when you're back to a business as normal. So definitely, it's very important to keep communication with everyone, the ones that are key workers, the one maybe that they're furloughed, and maybe, it's I have the same situation myself, but you want to make sure you keep in contact on the personal level, in them. I understand that you cannot contact them on a work related things, but definitely build that trust and that connection, and that bond on a personal level, and definitely keep in touch with them. That's key. That's key, because you're going to need them once you go back to business.
Thank you. Another question that we've had come in, it's a little bit similar to what you've touched on previously, but I didn't know if you had any more specific advice. This question is about mental health, in particular anxiety, which people might, well, a lot of people are struggling with more than normal at the moment. What advice could you give to employers for ensuring the sound mental health of their employees and checking in on that, and encouraging conversations around that topic?
Yeah. Very definitely very important. I think that was the first point that was touching base, is to really tackle the fear and the emotions. So definitely that's something we need to validate. And again, that's coming from the CEO, from this chief commercial officer, from yourselves, at all levels of the organization. There is that fear, there is those emotions. So definitely we need to have an open line of communication. Professionally speaking and personally speaking, again, some leaders are not trained definitely to have those type of professional conversations, but you can have them on a personal level, or more informal, I would say, more informal level. Ask open-ended questions. That I don't know. I'm sure you all know that open-ended questions, they are the ones that they cannot be answered with a yes or no. So really have open-ended questions, so they can vent, and they can actually show the emotions, the concerns, but definitely sometimes that is not enough, and you need to rely on the professional help. And most of the companies, they have the medical insurance, and they have professional help that they can rely on, and there's a lot of support. There's a lot of support from the government as well. But if you don't have those resources, so even for yourself, for those that are attending today and you are entrepreneurs, or you're self-employers, I mean, there are a lot of help, online that actually is very, very helpful. And people that are willing to help, and they're doing a lot of free consulting. I was doing a lot of free consulting last week for finding or moving into your next career path as well. I think a lot of people there are helping. So I think you can target that on a personal level, just having a very open line of communication. Then a little bit more professional. If you're a big company, you should have a professional help. And then definitely you're smaller or self-employed, look out there. That's a good thing about social media, that there's a lot of people helping, willing to help, including myself, if anyone needs help.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Another question we have, which is a little bit on a different note, is do you have any tips for establishing a good working environment at home?
Yes, there's plenty, definitely plenty of them. First of all, I think the most important, I've heard, I think we have all read, different articles about that, including the ones I wrote myself. But definitely the most important, and that's also for your kids, if you have kids, is to have a routine. That's very important, to have absolutely the same routine as you would have if you were going to the office. That means, keeping your schedule. That means, really, taking the shower, taking the breakfast at the same time, really making sure you dress up as you would in your work environment, and definitely making sure, aligned to what I say, making sure you have an ongoing review of your goal. And it's very easy to get distracted, nowadays, but it's very important to keep your end goal in mind. What are you trying to achieve as a long term? What are you trying to achieve medium term? What are you trying to achieve short term? Whether you're working on your own or you're working on a team, it's very important to keep that routine and that end goal that destination in mind. Otherwise, it's very, very easy to get distracted. And make sure you do your breaks, and make sure you take care of yourself. As I was saying, do a little bit of exercise, go out, or just move or dance or sing. But definitely that helps with the energy levels. And if you have employees, definitely that was a little bit of a rush. What happened with unfortunately with the pandemic, but definitely I know that a lot of companies, they are going to be having remote workers definitely, and a lot of people, they are going to be finishing their rents and move to working from home environment. Definitely you need to make sure, again, talking about social responsibility, if you're looking into that in the long term, to make sure your employees, they have the space, the lighting, and all the different tools they need to do the work properly. Again, it's about social responsibility and making sure you care about them, making sure they have the tools to really support your business.
Brilliant, thanks. Okay, just a couple more questions quickly before we wrap up. These are about Fast Track to a Focus. So does your company provide coaching services to individuals only, or also to teams in a more corporate environment?
Both. Both actually. I work very closely with individuals on a personal side, but also with individual leaders on a professional side, with the corporate and executive coaching diploma. I'm more specialized in leaders, executives, but also in teams, helping organizations, big organizations or smaller organizations, to actually build on their leadership, work on conflict and career development, change management as well, priority management, and teamwork as well. So actually work on both, and actually that's what I see more, that whenever an organization decides to really use coaching as a development tool, actually will do a deep diving into both sides, do coaching for leaders, executives, but also help the teams, because if you don't work on both sides, it's not going to really change the culture of the organization. So actually it actually helps, it works very well when you combine both. So yes, I do individuals and teams.
Thank you. And does Fast Track to a Focus deliver workshops outside of the UK, or just around the London area?
No, everywhere. Actually I've been doing, the last year, a few workshops in Spain, in Mexico, as well, so in different areas of the world. So, happy to support organizations here in the UK or anywhere.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much for that and for all of that information. It was incredibly topical and incredibly useful as well. Thank you to everyone for joining us as well this morning and taking time out of your day for that. If you would like to get in touch with Nieves to find out more about what she's spoken about today, or to look into the different services set out by Fast Track to a Focus Coaching, you can find all of the details to get in touch with her on the screen at the moment. So there's the website, Nieves' email address, the Twitter account, so do feel free to get in touch with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you. Also, please do keep an eye on the Spanish Chamber of Commerce's website and our events page, because we have a lot of other webinars coming up too over the coming weeks, and we'd love for you to take part in all of those as well. Yeah, thank you very much, Nieves.
Thank you. It's been absolutely a pleasure, Hannah and Elena. Thank you for organizing this, and thank you for everyone attending. And I wish you the best to everyone, and stay safe. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you so much, Nieves. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.